Injuries are mounting everywhere across the NFL. The Bengals are a disaster. Injuries. There's so many injuries. How do we navigate all that? How do we attack the best spots? Are the Cowboys the Coors Field of DFS? We're going to find out today as we dive into the Week 5 DFS slate here on Spike Week in the Blueprint. Let's do it. Good morning. GM Melch, dogs sneezing right behind me. It's a wonderful Thursday morning. We're getting right into it. I am extremely excited about this particular slate from a DFS perspective. I think it's good for all formats, including drafts, GM, Al. I think the culmination of all of these injuries that are happening, the erosion of talent across a lot of different NFL offenses, backfields are a mess, right? We'll get into it. We're going to go position by position discussing the DFS slate for DraftKings and Fanduel. We'll primarily just use DraftKings a little bit more as the lens to look through it, but we will definitely be talking about everything that pertains to Week 5 DFS. But if you've been following the course of the last couple of days, injury reports and such, obviously, like I said, we'll get to it when we go through position by position, but there's just a lot of attrition, if you will, in the NFL right now, right? Tyreek Hill goes down. CeeDee Lamb is still not playing. Both James Conner and then Trey Benson goes down on injured reserve for Trey Benson. Chuba Hubbard is looking pretty unlikely to play this week. Bucky Irving is on crutches with a walking boot at practice. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Even aside from that, there's a bunch of offensive line injuries that I think one or two in particular that are super relevant. We will discuss that as well. But from an overview of the slate, something that I think you'll find really interesting, that I part of why I'm super excited. I've coined this. It's Detroit Lions week. It's Detroit Lions week in all forms of fantasy football betting, DFS, your underdog drafts, which we will do tomorrow. If I had to give one sentiment from like a tournament perspective of where my brain is at for this slate, it is, I didn't even mention, George Kittle is still out tonight. We're recording this on a Thursday. Tonight, there's a Thursday night football game, and the 49ers are just trotting out at Christian McCaffrey and a bunch of XFL players on offense, right? George Kittle still out. Malik Neighbors, we've tried to, thanks, Nolan. We've tried to put that one out of even the back of the brain. We're trying to let that one just clear totally out of the brain. But Malik Neighbors goes down. It's been a crazy, truly crazy injury run, right? Jackson Dart is now starting instead of Russell Wilson, et cetera. But for Week 5, it's really easy. The injury stuff is important to touch on, and we will touch on a lot of it. But it's easy to just latch on to, okay, let's look for all the spots where guys are injured and new guys are stepping in. And what happens, and what I think is going to happen on this particular slate, is that some of the best plays, if not all of what I actually think are the best plays, the majority of them have nothing to do with the injuries. None. Zero. It's much more of some of the particularly defenses that, and we'll talk about the Cowboys, but some of the defenses that are really bad and really exploitable facing really good offenses. And you have a team like the Cowboys who are what we thought we were getting with the Cincinnati Bengals before the season. And what I mean by that is, if you're new, welcome. A, hit the like button, all that fun stuff. But B, I've coined it like the Coors Field, right, of DFS, of fantasy football. The Bengals had arguably the worst defense in the league, but they had Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and a powerful offense, and they had one of the highest pass rates in the NFL. They just let Joe Burrow go out there and cook. So Joe Burrow would keep them in games, and their defense would give up a touchdown, and they would go score a touchdown, and their defense would, right, we would go back and forth. We've lost that, obviously, with the injury to Joe Burrow. Jake Browning, spoiler, is not Joe Burrow. Despite one good half against the Jacksonville Jaguars, turns out Jake Browning is still just Jake Browning. Zach Taylor can't dig them out of this hole. The Cowboys, however, even without CeeDee Lamb, right, they have a healthy Dak Prescott. They have a league worst, ish defense, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And they have an offense that can just match anybody, right? The Cowboys just went toe-to-toe, literally tied the Green Bay Packers against that defense that we were, after week one, I think rightfully, like, oh my gosh, this Packers defense is nails, huh? They just shut down the Lions. Granted, it was in Green Bay, but we were all excited for the Packers defense. And Dak and co just went out and carved those dudes up. They obviously exploited the weakness at the cornerback position for the Green Bay Packers, but other good teams weren't able to exploit that. And it shows you how good the Cowboys offense is. But for as good as the Cowboys offense is, their defense is equally as bad. And so we have games like open up the slate every week and see what's up with the Cowboys game, because they can score on anybody and anybody can score on them and anybody can score a lot on them. On the flip side, you have teams like the Lions, who the Lions can score on anybody except, I guess, the Packers. The Lions can score on absolutely anybody. The Cleveland Browns defense is elite, truly elite. And the Lions are just like, ho hum, we're going to score 30 plus on these guys. I get this game is not in Detroit, but you'll have to forgive me if I don't think that it matters where this Bengals defense plays against this Lions offense. And so, because there's so many injuries, right, they're opening up things for Rachaad White. And I mean, like, Tyreek out opens a more projectable volume and projectable fantasy points onto like Devon Achane. Amarian Hampton still has Najee out, and he played 89% of the snaps last week for the Chargers. There's a bunch of injury stuff that is opening up and making some guys project a little bit better. And we just have the Coors Field, right? It's like if you showed up to an MLB DFS slate and nobody wanted to play Coors Field. And like that makes it very appealing. That's what the Cowboys are to me. Now, no, it's not that no one wants to play. People are playing the Jets. Don't get it twisted. But then you have teams like the Lions who are facing the Bengals, and the Lions just, it's what they do. They just hang huge numbers on these inferior opponents. One of my favorites from last year, if you recall, they played the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Detroit Lions did. And granted, I believe that one was also at home. So, part of this risk for sure is that this game is in Cincinnati. But like I said, for me, I'm willing to forego that. But here's just a run of a couple of Lions games super quickly so that we can get a reference for why my Lions obsession exists this week. So they actually come out a little bit slow out of the gates last year as well. 26 points, lose to Tampa, only 20 points against Arizona, and then bang, 42 against Seattle, 47 against Dallas, 31 against Minnesota in a close game. And then this Titans game happens, right? And if you recall, the Titans were really, really, really bad. Will Levis and co, they're really, really, really bad this year as well. But the Tennessee Titans come to town, and it's like, I don't know what to do with the Lions, because they're just going to blow this team out. But they don't take their foot off the gas like other teams do. Now, they didn't throw for a lot of yards in this game, obviously, but if we take a look super quickly, they just score 1 million points, right? They drop 50 plus, and just about everybody gets home. Goff doesn't even throw for very many yards, but Jahmyr Gibbs scores, David Montgomery scores, Sam Laporta scores, right? Khalif Raymond scores, Brock Wright scores, Amon-Ra St. Brown scores. Everybody's scoring touchdowns. And nobody wants to play the team that is basically going to do this again. Right? 50. This is like the expectation for Sunday. Obviously, that's a little bit of hyperbole. We're hoping for a little bit of pushback from Jake Browning and Jamar Chase and co. But there's just a level of upside to this Lions offense in this spot that is like not really being captured by what the market is loving. So let's go ahead and get into a little bit of it here. We'll start with the quarterback position. I will say Jared Goff is kind of the least of my excitement for that game. But again, that probably makes him just a really good click. What you see, this is, of course, my good friends over at rotogrinders.com, just to use their current ownership projections. We'll sort by projected ownership at each position and kind of walk through some of the stuff. But again, you see Justin Herbert, you see Daniel Jones, you see Justin Fields, who it's kind of crazy that Coors Field element, the New York Jets, has a $5,600 Justin Fields, who we know runs like crazy. He had the bad Buffalo game, right, and got hurt. But in two of his 3 games so far this year, he has scored at least 28 fantasy points. He now plays this Cowboys. He plays in Coors Field, and he's 5,600. And he's not the highest owned quarterback, right? Justin Herbert is currently projecting as the highest owned quarterback. I'll be interested to see how that shakes out by the end of the week. This is not to besmirch Justin Herbert. This is not to besmirch Daniel Jones. I think those guys are good plays. I think Justin Herbert is going to have a great game. The Washington pass defense has been atrocious, and the Chargers have been extremely pass heavy, right? But what we saw this past week, week 4, was that the Chargers' loss of Joe Alt, right? So they already lost left tackle Rashawn Slater. We moved Joe Alt in, it was supposed to be Slater and Alt, like probably the best tackle tandem, them and the Lions, right? The best tackle tandems in the sport. Now they're not only without Slater, they're also without Alt. And so it's going to be an issue for the Chargers protecting Justin Herbert in the short term. I think that against Washington, they can still get home, right? Justin Herbert can run around. They have elite receivers and pass catchers. It's a fairly condensed offense, right? 3 wide receivers in Amari and Hampton, a dash of Arondé Gadsden. But I am a little bit more concerned about Justin Herbert than maybe the field seems to be. I would tend to agree. Goat Huddle says Fields is going to be the highest owned. But again, we're just walking through this, and these other guys are going to be appealing to, right? Justin Herbert every week is like appealing to tournament players. Daniel Jones as well. I think it's a genuinely really good spot actually for Daniel Jones. If we take a look at the Raiders defense, it's one of my favorite current pass funnels that exist in football. If we take a look here, so this is defensive EPA, right? So from expected points allowed perspective, so you can sort it by pass and then run. Positive means the other team is expected to score this many more points per play than that, right? The 0 would be they're expected to score 0. Negative would be they're expected to score negative points, right? Where you're dominating them. Essentially, positive would be they're having a positive play. They're expected to gain points based on the outcome of that play. You see at the top, the worst pass defense in the NFL is the Cowboys, the Dolphins, and hilariously the Jets as well. So part of why that game is also really nice from a Coors Field perspective is it's not just the Cowboys defense being bad. It's the Jets pass defense also being atrocious so far this season. But the Raiders are, near the bottom of the league in pass defense, but their overall defense is neutral, but it's because their run defense has been dominant. They have shut down the run against all of their opponents. They are tied with the Lions, actually. So if you were interested in buying low on Chase Brown, I would not I would not say he is someone I would be targeting this week. But the Raiders are right there, right with the Lions, with the Seahawks, etc., as the top run defenses, even the Browns as the top run defenses in the league. And so that does make things pretty appealing for Daniel Jones. I actually can't believe I'm going to say this. I think I like him better than Justin Herbert. It's disgusting. It's very, very disgusting. But ultimately, where I would prefer to land, again, from a tournament perspective, is Justin Fields. And if we can get reasonable ownership on $5,600 Justin Fields against the worst pass defense in the sport, in the Dallas Cowboys with the offense that Dak and co are going to come shred, then sign me up for Justin Fields. But I will also say, as I keep scrolling here, you don't see a one Dak Prescott. That seems pretty appealing as well. If Justin Fields is going to be a little bit underowned despite this elite production, then Dak Prescott has to be underowned despite this elite production, going out and dropping 30 plus on the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, the Bears game, right, did not go particularly well. That was when CeeDee Lamb got injured. And he had a little bit of poor touchdown luck in those first couple of games. As you see, only 3 touchdowns in the Giants and the Bears games. He instantly bounces back with 3 touchdowns against the Packers. And he's just like the best bet for 303 just about every single week. And 303 instantly just gets you a smash score on DraftKings. And so I don't see a lot of reason. Look, Jackson Dart, I get it. He runs, and I get it that the Saints are not very good. You remove Malik Neighbors from that offense, and it's just hard for me to get to some of these other guys. Kyler Murray, I do think the pass catchers for Kyler Murray are interesting, but I just don't want to, like, at what point do we just call a spade a spade? And even against the Titans, Kyler Murray has played bad defenses already. This offense has no juice, right? They played the Panthers. They played the Saints. And there's just not the fantasy upside on an offense that, as I'll continue to say, and I will say it probably every week, I'll probably say it tomorrow when we do some drafts tomorrow morning. I'll say it next week with whoever the Cardinals are playing next week. They're playing modern basketball and not shooting 3-pointers. You can score points without shooting 3-pointers, but you're at a disadvantage, and it's very difficult on yourself to just drive to the rim or post up, right, when you're playing the Boston Celtics and they're shooting 50 3-pointers. It's just hard to win that way, and it's a slog, and it's a grind, and I do think they'll throw more. From a PROE perspective, shout out to Rick in the Spike Week Discord, which of course you can join at the link in the description. Mention something in what we call our lab in the Discord every week, every Wednesday, about, like, I think that the Cardinals will, from a PRO pass rate over expected, that will jump, because you just can't turn around and put the ball in the belly of Michael Carter and Amari DiMercato and Bam Knight like a million times. They're just not as good as James Conner and Trey Benson, and those guys already weren't having a ton of success. So I do think, like, from a PPR perspective, Trey McBride, Marv, those guys are appealing, but I just don't see why I need to go to Kyler this week, right? From a quarterback perspective, it's kind of simple. Justin Fields, Dak Prescott. I do like Daniel Jones. Justin Herbert is okay, and kind of let that ride. I don't see a lot of reason to get super cute. Yes, I did, Jordan. Next week, little teaser. My good friend Jordan, who you can join us every Sunday morning on Roto Grinders. I talked him into doing some DFS conversations with me. Let's hit some comments before we move on to running back. Michael Carter season, but we'll segue in a second into the running back stuff. Obviously, Trey Benson out, right? James Conner out. Michael Carter, was getting interviewed and used some funny wording that gave things away, I think, to the fantasy group. Now we'll find out if he was full of shit or not, but he was asked about, how are you handling the fact that you're now going to be a part of the offense after basically being, and that's what he said. It's crazy to go from, like, practice player of the week. He won their Pat Tillman award, like, practice squad player of the week, to the starter on offense, was specifically what he said. He chose those words, to the starter on offense. And so was he just, like, riffing and chose his words poorly, or is he gonna start the game for the Cardinals? I kind of think he's not lying. To Sizzle's question, who's the starting running back for Arizona? I think Amari DiMercato is a passing down back, and that's what they want him to be, and he's a special teamer, right? It's like DiMercato is a little bit like their Dario Gumbawale type back, where they're key special teams contributors and they're trusted in the passing game, and to protect Kyler and to catch checkdowns and all that kind of stuff, though he he's got some drops. But anyway, those guys generally, their role doesn't, it's not like a game of Madden where the next guy up on the depth chart, now Madden has added like third down backs and stuff, but it's not like a game of Madden where, okay, Connor goes out, we go to Benson. Benson goes out, we go to DeMercado. DeMercado goes out, we go to Carter. It's like you can be inactive. It sounds crazy. You can be inactive like Michael Carter has been. And then when someone gets hurt, you're actually the starter because the depth chart doesn't work that way, right? DeMercado, you don't want to have a bunch of running backs active on game days because you just only have one on the field. And so if you're a depth running back, you need to play special teams or you need to play a specialized role. And that's what the DeMercado thing is, right? That's what Justice Hill is. That's what Samaje Perine is. That's what these guys are. They play like these specialized roles. And so when someone goes down, it's actually not necessarily sometimes, but it's not necessarily they're the next man up. And that's what I think that this situation is that DeMercado is going to ultimately kind of stay in his role. Now that role takes away value from Michael Carter, but I think that Michael Carter's, they've kind of shown us in the past that this is what they did. And so I think that that's their plan is Carter's kind of the starter, if you will, right? If you're listening to the audio, I'm using air quotes. He's the starter, but it's going to kind of be a split between DeMercado and Carter. Let's see here. Yep. Let's see. Fields equals Lamar light. He is. It's not pretty like Lamar. Although Lamar wasn't very pretty for Lamar in week 4 either. Shout out to me for lock buttoning in Lamar last week and losing. I had some really good teams that just needed anything from Lamar, man. That was really, really frustrating. Can make an argument for May this week as a top 5 option. I believe that's the Sunday night game, right? Yeah. So in any formats that have the Sunday night game, I think Drake May is just becoming kind of without Lamar on the slate, right? I think that, and not that Caleb would be in there, and certainly Aaron Rodgers is not in that conversation either. But I think that you could make a case that Drake May is just an every week top 10 quarterback for sure with the rushing, right? I will say that the Bills' defense is okay and a little bit better versus the pass than they are against the run. Ed Oliver, I think, is going to be back this week, which I think is a pretty big deal for them. Actually, with the Bills, I'm like lukewarm on Drake May this week. I do think that game could get really fun, which would be really good for him. It'd be like a Josh Allen on one side and like baby Josh Allen on the other in May, right? Running around and slinging the ball around. Stephon Diggs, a little bit of revenge narrative going on for him this week. I think it's a fun game. I don't know where I would put May amongst all of the quarterbacks this week. And like I said, obviously he's not on this particular DFS slate, but he's a good option for sure. Would Hampton be a sell high considering the alt news? I think Chargers rank second in PROE. Yeah, I believe they're still second. Let me just double check. I can pull it up for you while we're talking here, because I think the Chiefs passed them, right? Nope, Chiefs haven't passed them. They're still highest. So Chargers are first in PROE. Chiefs are second. They're throwing 9% more than expected, right? That's crazy. That's a huge number. As you see, third is those Patriots at 3%. The Chiefs and Chargers, just from a passing perspective, are just like lapping the field. I do wonder if the injury to Alt, they don't want to pass maybe quite that much, but I don't think it's a bad idea at all to think about selling high on Hampton. Obviously, his role is going to be awesome, and he's really good. And Alt will be, I believe Alt will be back, right? I haven't even looked up I just know he was out this week. But I think it's an interesting idea. So we'll put a bow on quarterback. It's okay to laugh. Ask Stack or Fields this week. If I had to choose a starter for a redraft league, I think I have to say, I think you have to take Justin Fields because of the rushing. And as bad as the Jets defense has been, I still believe in some of the talent over there. And there is still no CeeDee Lamb. As good as the Cowboys were last week, if something like Sauce can slow down Pickens and the Jets run game can get going, right? The Cowboys' pass defense has been worse, but I don't think their run defense is good either. We saw that from an EPA perspective. It's also not a good run defense. It's just not as bad as their pass defense. If the Jets' run game gets going, right, that limits possessions. It limits time of possession specifically for the Cowboys side of things. Dak doesn't really run. So you have to go Fields, I think, but like it's hard not to just say Dak every week because he also has a high floor with that Cowboys offense. Greg Dortch is fast. Fun fact, look up Greg Dortch's 40 time whenever you get a chance. Somebody said Greg Dortch is fast. Greg Dortch is quick and agile. Greg Dortch is not fast. He actually, when you Google it and you see what Greg Dortch ran in the 40, you're going to laugh because it's crazy. You would think the small little jitterbug slot receiver was fast. No, I think it's very slow, actually. It's crazy. Yeah, the Bills allow, it says the Bills allow the 10th most fantasy points to the position. Yeah, it's because, and that's a game environment thing, right? It's a game environment thing. It's not because their defense is, at the very bottom of like past defenses or whatever. I try not to look too much at the like fantasy points allowed to position because it doesn't include right now like how good the defense is. Like this Bills conversation, you can also run into issues where you're like, actually the Bills defense is like kind of, this is like the Lions. The Lions defense is actually like kind of good, but they do give up fantasy points because their offense, right, the other team has to throw so much, which generally leads to more fantasy points. So you have to make sure to balance the like this defense is really good with the game scripts that they're going to allow for their opponents is right. Like the Eagles have given up more fantasy points than I think people would imagine over the years, even though their defense has been really good because they play with leads so much, et cetera, right? And so we got to balance that. But I try to look at just like the actual strengths of the defense. I generally use EPA as my quick guide. That's not perfect. That's not perfect either. You got to try to adjust for opponents and all that kind of stuff too. But right, it's that delicate balance. I like May this week for sure. Let's see here. Oh, don't do it to yourself, Jordan. I grossly like Jake Browning a tiny little bit. DJ Reed is out. Are the Lions a good pass defense? Maybe Broncos, Vikings D-line were bad matchups. I do think that's true, but hold on a sec. You want to see, because I wanted to pull this up when we got to defense, but we're having fun. We're riffing. You want to know who has the highest sack rate in the NFL so far this season? The Detroit Lions. So if the Vikings and the Broncos, who are also high on this list, right? Broncos are second, Vikings are eighth. If the Broncos and the Vikings are going to be a problem for Jake Browning and the Lions, or Jake Browning and the Bengals offense, I think the Lions might be a problem too. Agreed, DJ Reed. Like I have a dynasty team that has these four. You start 3 wide receivers, and no flex, which is stupid, but I have these 4 wide receivers, and I don't know who to start. I'll start at the end, actually. George Pickens, Emeka Buka, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. And so you told me coming into the season, you got those 4 wide receivers. I was stoked. I'm like, we're ready to make a run, baby. We're going to win this whole thing. And now I don't know what to do. Justin Jefferson has Carson Wentz against the Browns. Jamar Chase has Jake Browning against the Lions. Emeka Buka seems like the lock, but he is playing a tough Seattle team, and he's not going to score a 75-yard touchdown every game. And then George Pickens, who I very much love, is probably also just like locked in. But it's a real mind fuck thinking about right what to do. But that's the fun of this week. I think this week is super duper fun. I do think, yeah, Chase. I just don't think I can get to T. I don't think I can get to T, but I do think I could probably get to K. Thank you. DeAndre Swift season with a SGA avatar is really funny. You're truly not bought all the way into DeAndre Swift season because you can't even stomach making him your avatar. We got to make an actual good athlete the avatar. I respect it. But possible IR for Joe Alt. Not great. Yeah. Right now, well, what I will say is I'm almost positive I'm sitting one of JJ or Chase, which is so insane. It's like truly so insane. I have Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, like the 101, 102, give or take, right? In like dynasty ranks, like heading into the season. And now I'm thinking about sitting them for George Pickens against, right? And it's like against Sauce Gardner. And I'm thinking about sitting him. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's where we're at now with these teams. And it's really, really crazy to see. All right, we made it a half hour before we finally moved on to running back. But I do think this is where the slate gets really, really interesting. This is another one where, again, remember like the opening salvo where we talked about the whole deal here is the fact the running backs, the value that's opening up at the running back position via injury or what have you is where people's eyes are glued to. But we also have Jonathan Taylor, right? Devon Achane has like quasi got injury stuff that has helped him out. Jonathan Taylor is just a beast. But if Jonathan Taylor is going to be this popular against that, we just showed you, right? The Vegas pass funnel defense, how dominant they've been against opposing rushing attacks and how terrible they've been against opposing passing attacks. At $8,000, I think Jonathan Taylor is a little bit more of a pass. Of course, he's Jonathan Taylor, right? The typical caveats. This is like a semi-frustrating part of like fantasy football and everything is when you try to break down why it's not a great spot for Jonathan Taylor. Sometimes someone will say like, well, it's Jonathan Taylor, he can do it against anybody. And it's like, that's true. Of course, he's Jonathan Taylor. He could rip a 75-yard touchdown against absolutely anybody. But from a just like a probability of that happening perspective, this is a worse spot than the average one, even though that seems weird, right? It's a little bit of a trickier spot for him on the ground than it has been in a couple of their other games. And we do also have to always remember that Daniel Jones will steal the 1-yard rushing touchdowns. It's a perk for Daniel Jones, but it's a con for Jonathan Taylor. For the first couple of games, Daniel Jones is right, QB sneaking, tush pushing, whatever you want to call it, at the 1-yard line every time they get down there. Now it hasn't happened. They haven't gotten there. They've gotten down, they've scored points, but they haven't had the 1-yard stuff as much. So that's also a risk for JT. He'll catch passes, right? But he's not like some huge pass catcher. After that, again, we talked about the Amari and Hampton thing. We talked about the Chargers stuff. I like Hampton okay, but this is more of a pass funnel spot as well. Washington, all I think we have to say is remember what Trey Tucker did to the Washington Commanders. Like we probably don't even have to get into the data, right? You could just say, remember Trey Tucker? Remember the Trey Tucker game? Because yeah, the Commanders here again, another really solid against the run, really bad against the pass. Same thing for those Patriots, by the way. Really, really solid against the run, really, really bad against the pass. So that is a nice perk for Justin Herbert, right? That's why I think Justin Herbert is a nice play. Quentin Johnston is probably a good play again. And why maybe Lab McConkey might actually have a good game for once is because this sets up to be a pretty good spot for the passing game. But I think it's not so great for Amari and Hampton. And I think Breece Hall, right before this show, Braylon Allen was officially put on injured reserve, and Breece Hall is $5,600 against the Dallas Cowboys. Look, I'm as big of an Isaiah Davis fan as there is, but like he ain't taking all the stuff here from Breece Hall. I just don't like. It's great for the new names to pop up: Michael Carter, Amari DiMercado, Rico Dowdle, right? It's Rashad White. Those are like interesting to good plays, I think, generally, right? The Arizona guys, not so much from a DFS perspective, but we'll talk about Dowdle and Rashad. The problem is that Breece also sort of got the benefit of an injury, and his price is ridiculous. And he's way better than those guys at football, and that matters. And he's in Coors Field, right? But he's not priced like it. It's like every once in a while you play a Coors Field slate, and the Dodgers go to Coors and they screw up somebody's price. Max Muncy, whatever is way too cheap. They accidentally make Mookie Betts his normal price instead of his Coors Field price. And you're like, this is just a terrible price for him in Coors Field. We have Breece Hall, Justin Fields, and soon we'll discuss Garrett Wilson in Coors Fields, and their prices are not indicative of them playing in Coors Field. And they need to win some games and quick. Now, I don't think they're going to win this week, but they are thinking that they can, and they're thinking that they can score a whole bunch of points against this Cowboys defense. It just, to me, screams of Breece Hall in this spot. I don't love Derrick Henry against the, how much leverage you get when the Coors Field game flops? Sure. You know how, you don't need leverage when the Coors Field game isn't as owned as it should be. So the thing about leverage is that it requires the popular thing that we're talking about here, this Coors Field game, to be at a minimum to be efficiently owned. And what efficiently owned means, okay, if 25% of the time they win the slate, they're 25% owned. The problem is a lot of the times, or what you would really want from a leverage perspective, is that it's over-owned, right? So 25% of the time it wins you the slate, but it's 45% owned. Now you play, right, at true leverage would be to play something that benefit, right, would be like to play the defenses or play play Mason Taylor, play Mason Taylor, right? Or Kevontae Turpin is hurt, but Jalen Tolbert or Javonte Williams or something like that. The leverage would be, because you're if this fails, how do I directly benefit would be the leverage angle. But you also need, if Breece Hall is not the stone cold, absolute mega chalk, right? If Justin Fields is 15% owned, like, who fucking cares? There's a lot of ways that you can get leverage. If this ownership is even like remotely accurate, we can leverage off of Devon Achane. We can leverage off of Jonathan Taylor. We can leverage off of Amari and Hampton. It's like, I know how much leverage you get when you fade a baseball game, which is very different than a football game. But if it's not owned enough, right? This is what happened 2 weeks ago. I had a good week in DFS, right? In week 3. Jesus, I can't remember what week it is. In week 3, we had a situation similar to this where the plays are so good, and yet they don't come in as owned as they should have been. Jackson Smith and Jigba people are still everybody's gonna play him. It's JSN. He's 6K. He has the highest target share in the league, the highest air yard share in the league. He's playing in terrible defense, blah, 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 blah. And then he wasn't popular at all. Right? Actually, everyone just played Ken Walker. The leverage point ended up being Ken Walker. Jordan Mason was under-owned. Jordan Mason was a workhorse starting running back at $5,400 against that Cincinnati Bengals defense at home in Minnesota, and was not as owned as he should be. So if this stuff comes in too owned, then we can definitely start to have those conversations, and the leverage would then be someone else within the game. But Woody is fine. Woody is fine. I got no problem with Woody Marks. We're definitely going to talk about him as well. But yeah, exactly. Bingo. It's like Puka last week. You're in small field stuff, right? Like I play like generally smaller fields, like anywhere from 200 to 500 people or something like that, give or take, on DraftKings. So very, very small. I mean, I toss it into the big field stuff, but you get the point. My primary focus is on smaller field tournaments. And I flip over the cards and like Puka's like 35, 40% owned. And I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? He's a $9,500 player in an absolute smash spot. He should be way, and it's so easy to fit him, right? He should be way more owned. And it's right now, that's how I feel about a lot of the pricing and stuff here. I can play there's just like almost no real path to Breece like truly failing against these bad defenses. Is he going to absolutely smash the slate? That remains to be seen. There are other running backs I like, and I will just say, as we're discussing this right now, I prefer Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson, okay, amongst the Jets. I want that out there. But the Breece Hall price is terrible. It's ridiculous because matchup and stuff matters, right? And playing the Dallas Cowboys is pretty good, even if their run defense is a little bit better than their passing defense. That being said, the aforementioned, yeah, exactly. And it's just, that's the other thing. This is a salary cap game, right? We're playing a salary cap game. It's not just like, oh, I need this other guy to outscore or whatever. It's like, well, they're like $5K, dude. I think they're both $5,600. They're $5,600 against the Cowboys. Like that's it's just wrong, right? It's just a wrong price. And so more often than not, for me, when you get a wrong price, I'm just going to play, right? Jordan Mason, 54. Jordan Mason should have been 7,400 or something like that against the Bengals. And he was 5,400. And 60% of people convinced themselves to do something else than play that. It's like, that should be the opposite. Like maybe 40% should convince themselves to do something else, right? Injuries happen or just bad touchdown luck. But like, I'm not saying he should be 80%, but I'm saying it's like Jordan Mason was 40% owned and the best play of the slate, ownership included, in tournaments, because the ownership was wrong because the price was wrong. And so when the price is wrong, you can just sign me up for those guys. Yeah, this is true. A little bit smaller slate. Shout out Berg says week 3 was 13 games, right? So this week is only 10. So there's bye weeks plus obviously the normal primetime games, and then the Dublin game. Right? Is it still in Dublin? I haven't been keeping track because the games are so terrible that we keep sending to these foreign countries. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's see. Oh, so talk about some of these other running backs. I want to let's go look at some of these situations. I do very much like Woody Marks. I agree with Shuby. I think he makes. I mean, I don't think people are going to play him, and he started to take over that backfield last week, as we saw. Well, if this will load, maybe not the old rookie stuff. I think I got him up here. Yeah, let's just use DraftKings.com. So 5,400 for Woody, and we saw 17 carries, five targets. The great part about Woody from a DraftKings perspective is that he's a good pass catcher. It's his best skill. I'm not so sure he's a super great runner. And the quote from D'Amico Ryans was, "They are excited to see how much more work they can give Woody Marks," which seems pretty goddamn good for his forward-looking, his trajectory the rest of the season. The additional fun little point is that the Baltimore Ravens defense that we've historically thought was good, buddy, it's not going so well in Baltimore. 2025, we might be kicking the can down the road to 2026 on this Baltimore Ravens season. Through 4 weeks, of course, it's only four games. They've had a really tough schedule, right? So that's important to note. That's my cause for concern against the Houston Texans, whose offense I do not believe in. They have the league worst offensive line. I don't think CJ Stroud is very good, frankly. The passing game is bad. It's Nico and a bunch of vagabonds. I just don't want to be too heavily invested. As someone who played a bunch of Nico last week, I don't want to be too heavily invested in the Texans offense. The running back thing is a little bit better version of it, and the Ravens have been equally bad against the run as they have been against the pass. But remember who they've played. Buffalo Bills, pretty goddamn good offense. Detroit Lions, pretty damn good offense. And the Kansas City Chiefs with Xavier Worthy. So I'm not saying the Chiefs are like in truly elite offense, but that's, obviously they played the Cleveland Browns, but they played well against, right? The defense played pretty well against the Cleveland Browns. And so how much do I want to buy into like, oh, this Ravens defense is terrible? It's like, I'm not sure how we would be viewing their defense if they played the Texans 4 times, but they played the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Lions. So we're like, oh, right. I'm the one sitting here saying like, look at their defensive metrics. They're fucking terrible. But would they be so terrible? Would they be this terrible if they played the Texans and the Browns and the Titans and stuff every week? I don't think so. So that's always right. That's like we had another good conversation in the lab last night in the Spike Week Discord, where like the Jaguars defense being good came up, and it's like they rate well, right? They've played well statistically through 4 games, but you look at the Jaguars defense, and it's like the inverse of the Ravens schedule. Carolina, we know how terrible the Carolina offense is in week 1, right? The Bengals, and so sure, they played the Bengals, but Joe Burrow got hurt in that game in the second quarter, right? So not less than a half of Joe Burrow, and Jake Browning carved them. Jake Browning in that Bengals game, or in that Jaguars Bengals game, was like, we were like, oh, okay, maybe Chase and T are going to be fine with Jake Browning at quarterback, because he carved up this Jaguars defense. Then they play the Texans, this offense that we're talking about how bad they are, and the corpse of the San Francisco 49ers, right? In that game, Ricky Pearsall got hurt and Juwan Jennings got hurt, and they already didn't have Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and blah, 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 blah. So it's an interesting one. I'm interested in Woody Marks if no one's going to play him. And so I think that's the ultimate thing here. I think long-term, buying before the field comes around to Woody Marks and before his price gets to where it should be makes him pretty appealing. But I'm a little bit cautious about the spot. We got to talk about Miami and Carolina, though. Chuba Hubbard is currently in these projections. I would be surprised if Chuba Hubbard plays. He was limited all last week in practice with this calf injury, and then he came out and didn't play very much. Now they got the bricks beat off of them by the Patriots, of course, but Rico Dowdle played half the snaps, got a bunch of touches, 10 touches. But there's not a lot of touches to go around in Carolina because they don't sustain a drive ever, right? Which is the concern here. The Dolphins defense has been horrible, right? To go back to our handy dandy metrics and stuff here. What in the hell is going on here? Why is this not working? There we go. The Dolphins have had, we talk about the Cowboys, we should be fair and talk about how bad the Dolphins defense has been. And it has been significantly worse against the pass. And so maybe it's a T-Mac. Maybe it's finally a T-Mac spot, though. I'm not sure that those exist, not because of him, because of Bryce being so bad. RIP to the, maybe Bryce turned a corner. He was playing pretty well down the stretch last year. And he was, but God, they're bad. The Panthers are just so bad. So the opportunity for Rico Dowdle is going to be there, though I wouldn't just give him the whole backfield. Trevor Etienne is going to play in this game. And I just don't know how much, right? My expectation is, again, you see Chuba is in these projections. My expectation is that he does not play. And so Rico Dowdle is another potential option. It's just like, we'll get to the Lions. It's just like, do I want to play those Jets, right? Do I want to play Breece Hall on the Jets against the Dallas Cowboys in Coors Field, right? Do I want to play Breece Hall in Coors Field at 5,600, or do I want to play any fucking Panther for 4,300? It's like, I don't know. Pricing's not that tough this week. Can I just play the guys in Coors Field? That's sort of how I'm thinking. Devon Achane, however, is a pretty darn good play. 7,300. I do think his role elevates a little bit without Tyreek, and the offense is really built around Achane anyway, and apparently Darren Waller. But I think Achane is just a really good play. Do I want to play him as the highest owned running back of the slate at 7,300? That is the difficult part, and we'll get to it because we got to talk about Gibbs, and somebody liked Saquon. There's some good pivots around Achane, and again, he's great. He projects great. I think he's going to have a very good game. The Dolphins without Tyreek Hill against like anybody, do I really want, like, am I really in love with that as the chalk, as like the stone cold chalk? That remains to be seen. I need to see more from Miami before I get super excited about that. I think nobody going back to Ashton Genty is pretty interesting. The Colts get absolutely bullied up front. Let's see. I believe they were not so great. I was wrong. I was wrong from a EPA per rush play perspective over here. But in general, the Colts defense has gotten pushed around up front. Xavier Howard legitimately just retired in their secondary. This is no joke. I'm not kidding when I say this. Xavier Howard came out of retirement to play corner for the Indianapolis Colts. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and Matthew Stafford, and Tutu Atwell apparently came to town cooked him so bad, he fucking retired. He retired from football. He said, I'm going back to the couch, man. It ain't worth it. I got too much pride. I had too good of a career to come out here and embarrass myself getting wrecked by Puka. He just quit. He retired. This is so good. So good. So anyway, him being gone is probably not hurting the defense, of course, but I think it's the fact that he was a functional part of an NFL defense. Like, I don't fear the Indianapolis Colts defense at all. So you can play, like, I don't really love, Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers and stuff. We'll get to it, but I do think you can play Ashton Genty again here. And we already kind of talked about the JT thing. I don't want to belabor it. Cam Skattebo also is going to get all the work for the New York Giants. My concern with Cam Skattebo is Jackson Dart is not right. If we often ding, right, like Brees, someone would say, well, Justin Fields scrambles a lot, right, and they don't throw a lot, and he doesn't check down a lot. He actually checks down at a fairly high clip. It's just that they don't throw right per pass attempt. He checks down a decent amount, but he also there's just not a lot of pass attempts. He scrambles. Jackson Dart is worse than, like, in that regard. Jackson Dart is just always looking to run. He doesn't even really want to throw. If you watch that game, he would drop back. If the first read wasn't there, he's instantly like, okay, when do I run? Where do I run? Which really hurts the check down, right? I bet Cam Skattebo over 2.5 catches last week. And the lesson that I learned from that is I'm not sure how many checkdowns there are going to be from Mr. Jackson Dart. He's not interested in sliding, but he's also not interested in checking the ball down. So that, as nice as the role is for Cam Skattebo, I think that is a tricky part of his, like, DFS profile. Jackson Dart is going to steal some goal line rushing. Though Skattebo is still getting plenty. He got plenty of that. He should have scored last week. Didn't, of course. But there's just, like, some concerns about the role. It's a workhorse role for Skattebo, but, like, a workhorse role with still limited passing volume and some goal line vulture risk. On the flip side, nothing. I mean, I guess you can always play $5,900 Alvin Kamara, but I will just say our boy Kendre is playing pretty well. 11 touches in the game against the Bills, right? So they're losing. Not by a lot, actually. They were very competitive with the Bills. But they're in a game they're losing on the road at Buffalo, and Kendre gets 11 touches to Alvin Kamara's 20. That seems opportunities, right? 11 opportunities to Kamara's 20. That doesn't seem so good for old Alvin Kamara. Spencer Rattler is also not a big time check down artist. I think the spot is fine against the Giants, but Kendre Miller, also fun stat. Number 1 elusive rating in the NFL amongst running backs. I haven't actually checked it on PFF. I just saw somebody post it on social. But Kendre, never wrong, just early. We were just early. Multiple years early, in fact, but never wrong, just early. We've talked a lot about Brees. I do think Javonte makes some sense, though. Again, these things are not everything, right? The whole, like, pass funnel, run funnel, different kind of stuff. But the Jets have been pretty severe pass funnels, like pretty severe. They're above average against the run and really, really, really bad against the pass. Third worst in the NFL. It's hard for me to understand how the Jets are the third worst pass defense in the NFL. They haven't even played that tough of a schedule. So I'm buying the Jets defense. I think I would project them to be better than this, like, moving forward, but I definitely don't fear them. And so Javonte is, again, like, fine. You're going to consolidate the touches, right? But, like, even in these great games, we talked about how deep this running back group is this week. Do I want to hope for 20 from Javonte, right? Because he's not going to rip a bunch of long runs. I think he's an awesome fantasy asset, but do I really want to play him in DFS in, like, a spot that's not great for rushing efficiency? I'm not so sure that I want to do that at 18%, right? At some pretty real ownership, top 5-ish owned running back. Now, I don't think he's going to be top 5 because, again, Dowdle is not in here, and we'll talk about Rachaad White. I don't think the Cardinals guys are going to get ownership, nor should they, but I don't think he's going to be, like, mega owned, but just something to consider with Javonte. Saquon does look pretty good here at home against the Broncos. Saquon hasn't popped for a big game yet. Hilariously, 18, 17, 9, and 17 fantasy points in 4 games. I do think a good one is coming. This is a really good Denver defense, though. That being said, this really good Denver defense got absolutely wrecked by Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's best game of the season was against the Denver Broncos. So, do I think Saquon makes an interesting tournament pivot at the top? I do. I do think he makes for an interesting tournament pivot. I will say, I'm not going to sit here and pound the table for any Eagle ever. And not against good defenses, especially. It's just not going well on offense. It's not going well. The offensive line is not very good. Lane Johnson, I don't believe, practiced yesterday. The offensive line is not very good from a run blocking perspective. I think I have that up here as I was looking at. Oh, that's run defense. Run blocking. So actually, let's go this way. Run blocking grade, right? We would expect the Philadelphia Eagles to be near the top of run blocking grade. My God, look at the Bengals. They are slightly below average. Again, these are just PFF grades. It's not perfect, but it gives you a decent gauge of somewhat where they sit from a blocking perspective. And God, look at how bad some of these teams are. Here, another Dolphins not being very good, nor the Jets not being very good. Maybe better for the Fields, Garrett Wilson stuff. But the best run blocking unit has been the Chargers. And of course, Joe Alt is not a part of that anymore. The Commanders has been. This is why everybody's getting out over their skis over Washington stuff. The run game is just really good. It doesn't really Bill, Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols, doesn't matter. They have a really good running game. So do the Buffalo Bills. As a matter of fact, look at the Saints, baby. Good Lord. That's insane. Anyway, just wanted to reference that for the Eagles, but I also no thank you on the Broncos this week. We talked to the Titans are very similar to me to the the Panthers. It's just it's bad, man. They're bad on a slate with this many good running back plays. Tyjae Spears might be back. I don't think RG. Yeah, also RG has him in the projections, right? Tyjae Spears returned to practice this week. He was on injured reserve for the first 4 weeks. I don't know if he's going to play just yet, but if he does, I mean, I don't really want Tony Pollard anyway, but definitely if Spears is back, we definitely got Bucky Wright still in the projections. That will be removed, I assume, very, very soon because he is on crutches. Doesn't seem very good for playing and scoring 15 fantasy points on Sunday. If you're on crutches on Wednesday, it's probably pretty bad. So I think we're going to see Rachaad White pop up here. My concern for Rachaad White as a potential chalky play is this Seattle defense, pretty good, right? Oops. Currently third best defense from an EPA per play perspective in football, and the third best rushing defense. Yay, Rachaad White against the third best rushing defense in the league. That seems fun. The pass defense has been a little bit worse. I just don't know that I can do it with Rachaad. He's going to catch passes. He's going to get goal line work. I get it. I think Sean Tucker is going to play more right than the average Bear thinks. Not Ben Johnson's Bears, but just people. I would expect Rachaad to be the lead here, but you're playing the lead of a committee. Not this is not Jordan Mason. This might not be Rico Dowdle, though I think Trevor Etienne's going to play. This is what's an example? This is Michael Carter. Obviously Rachaad White's going to get this is Amari DiMercato, but with some of Michael Carter's carries, right? Rachaad White's going to definitely be the third down back and catch some passes. He's going to get some goal line work, but is he going to take the whole thing against a really good defense? I don't think so. I think he's an interesting play, and I really want to see his ownership, but I don't want to play Rachaad White into a bunch of ownership because there are just other plays that I really, really want. Yeah. So the problem with this is a good point, but also the Seattle Seahawks would need to get out to a nice lead. In order for guys to catch a bunch of right, what we would call like garbage time or catch up mode, not catch up, in order to catch a bunch of these passes, you like really need to be down by like a lot. And if it's like a 7 to 10 point game, like he's probably not going to be just out there catching a million balls. I'm not, I'm not interested in Sean Tucker in DFS this week. But if you wanted to toss a Sean Tucker in to Millie Maker teams, I think it's good. Sean Tucker is a good runner. He's a good running back. Period. Yeah, Henny says Sean Tucker going to piss people off on their benches when he scores 30 fantasy points. I'm not interested I'm excited for my Sean Tucker best ball bags, and I'm probably going to have some really bad zero running back rooms that I'm going to end up starting Sean Tucker this week, but I'm not like I'm not super excited for really anything in this backfield, and I think that that's probably not the case for most. All right. The running backs are a big deal here, so we want to make sure we're hitting on all these. We talked about Hampton already, and no thank you for Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara and Chris Rodriguez for me this week in that game. So I don't want to touch on that, but I do just want to talk about the Lions. Part of why I talk about burying the lead, talking about them last after we go through every other running back on the slate. But why like that? There's a lot of guys we talked about that are like genuinely good plays. Like I'm shitting on Rashad White, right? I'm shitting on, like Kai likes Tony Pollard more than I do. The problem for like 15 carry floor for 5K seems okay. Yeah, that it's just he's had that all year, and you need to score points, and you also need to catch passes, and they're not really throwing him the ball, and the Titans can't score. And so there's right, it's like there's other good plays too. Right. So Rico 15 carry floor for 5K. Well, Rico Dowdle's going to have that. And like Rashad White's probably going to have that. Right. Or maybe not carries, but touches. Yeah, we'll see if Tajay comes back. It's unclear. But right. The Woody Marks is going to have that. There's just a lot of alternatives. So it's not that Pollard is like inherently bad in a vacuum. It's that there's like we just walked through all these games, and like there's a million good running back plays, and you can only play 3. 2 or 3. So it's just tough for me to get there. And part of that is why, again, getting to this last running back point, is like no one's playing the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs, right? We saw Devon Achane at 7,300 is projecting for 30-something% ownership. Jonathan Taylor at 8K is the 30-something% ownership, right? We all think Breece is going to be pretty popular, et cetera, et cetera. Jahmyr Gibbs, the lead running back for the Detroit Lions, on a team with a team total over 30, more than 30 points, right? Their team total is almost as high. Their team total is almost as high as the game total tonight. It's almost as high as the game total in Ireland. Almost, right? It's like less than a touchdown shy of the Ireland game total. It's like this team is going to score so many points. And I get it's like, well, I got to pick where they come from. But my plan of attack is to be way over on all the Lions, onslaught the Lions, play Gibbs. You can play Gibbs and Monty together. You can play one. You can play JMO. You can play Goff double stacks. You don't have to play Jamar Chase if you don't want to as a bring back. The Lions don't give a fuck if the other team is scoring, right? We saw that with that Titans game speaking of the Titans, that Titans game of last year. They will score and score and score. They'll drop 50. You got to stop them. Yes, Brock Wright or Sion Vaki might score a touchdown. Agreed. But when you score 8 touchdowns, it's fine. If most teams score 20 points, right? NFL average scoring is in the low 20s. So 3 touchdowns, most teams get 3. I don't care if I give away a couple to the offensive lineman, right? Let Penei Sewell score a touchdown. That's fine. There's 7 more to go around, right? It's just that's I'm exaggerating because 7, 8 touchdowns would be extreme even for the Lions, but you get the point. Like they're gonna score a bunch. This also feels to me just like let's get everybody cooking. And we'll talk about that at wide receiver. But if Jahmyr Gibbs is 6% owned and David Montgomery at 5,200, right? The David Montgomery who scored 32 fantasy points in week 2 against the Baltimore Ravens. the guy who scored 1 million has scored 1 million touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, who just keeps scoring fantasy points. Right? We talked about Saquon. It's like, well, I'm getting a lot more out of Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's lower owned than Saquon is against the Bengals. You don't think Jahmyr Gibbs could have 2 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game? He's that good. The Lions are that good, and the Bengals are that bad on defense. So just part of if you listened, for the 30 minutes or whatever about the running back stuff, where my head is at and why I'm like, I don't know if I want to do HN. I don't know if I want to do JT. I don't know if I want to do Dowdle or whatever. It's because the Lions exist. And the Lions are at these ownerships. And these are not going to, right? We're going to get more running backs that grow in ownership, and the Lions ownership is not going to grow. These might be a little bit light, but the Lions are going to score 1 billion points. It's probably going to be on the ground. Yeah, exactly, Chris. The Bengals might struggle versus a Pop Warner team. It's bad. And maybe they do, right? Maybe they do bounce back a little bit on offense. Maybe Jake Browning can actually score a couple touchdowns against this Lions defense. I'm not hopeful. But like I said, I don't care because the Lions are just going to score regardless. If that's true, that's even better. Right? That's even better for the Lions. That means the Bengals are going to push back a little bit, give the Lions more incentive to keep scoring because they're just going to score on like every drive. The Lions are. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from with the running back position. Let's get into some wide receivers. God bless. Nothing like an Erik Beimfohr discussion where we take an hour and 6 minutes to get to wide receivers, and we still got to do tight ends and defenses. We're not going to go game by game here through the wide receivers because I do think it's a little bit there's of course plenty of wide receiver plays, but this is another one where I get it that Tyreek is out. Like, trust me, I get it. I understand that logically you would think we go to Jalen Waddle. The Panthers pass defense isn't as bad as expected. This is a little bit of not cope because I don't give 2 shits about the Panthers, but like I just don't know that I want to play Jalen. This is like another similar thing of like Jalen Waddle is fine, but there's other good wide receiver plays. Do I want to play Jalen Waddle as the highest owned or one of the highest owned wide receivers on the slate? Right. This is like we talked about the quarterback stuff. This is then starting to align with quarterback ownership. You got the Chargers guys who I like, but as much as I expect I like Ladd this week, I think he's going to bounce back. Do I want to bet with the second? Everybody is betting on that, right? Everybody's betting on QJ to continue doing his thing. Did we not watch the Giants game last week? I know QJ got home, but the Giants defense kind of dominated the Chargers without Joe Alt. Like, again, I don't expect that to happen. I think the Chargers are going to have a good game, but the field thinks they're going to have a good game too, right? Jacoby Myers is some of the highest owned wide receivers, a Texans wide receiver, right? Like Nico. I love Nico. The price is awesome, but it's a Texans player. They're not very good on offense, right? I would give me Woody phrasing. Give me Woody Marks in my DFS lineups over a chalky Texan, as great as Nico Collins is, right? Like AJ Brown, I know he's $6,000. I know he's complaining about not getting the football. It's the Broncos, man. It's Patrick Surtain. Like I'm going to play into that ownership. No, thank you. We got to keep scrolling until we finally get to a Lion. Amon-Ra St. Brown is lower owned than AJ Brown. One guy plays the Bengals. One guy's on the Lions. The other guy's on a pretty non-functional Eagles offense against the Broncos defense. It's just tough for me to get behind some of this, right? I do think T-Mac is interesting. I don't think Waddle is a bad play for what it's worth. And T-Mac makes for, if you're going to do some Dolphin stuff, a really, really good bring back for sure. But this is what I'm saying with when we talked about before. I don't think I think he's going to be higher owned than this Garrett Wilson. But why I don't feel this need to like divert from my opening monologue about Coors Field and about the Lions and about whatever is just because like they're not owned enough. If on Thursday, I think that this Garrett Wilson ownership is going to be much higher than it is. But if on Thursday he's not projecting as the stone cold chalk, He's not going to be like 50% on Sunday, right? So like, I don't know, man, $6,100 Garrett Wilson against the Cowboys seems pretty goddamn good, right? He is up to this point of the season. This is from a target share perspective, right? Here's your target share leaders in the NFL. Puka Nacua at 37.59. Hilariously, Chris Olave at 37.59. Garrett Wilson at 36.5, Jamar Chase at 36, Jackson Smith and Jigba at 35. So those five guys have a 35% or higher target share on the week. No one else is above 29, which is Zay Flowers and AJ Brown and Mike Evans, hilariously, and Christian McCaffrey. That's even funnier. Obviously, the volume for Garrett Wilson is a little bit lighter because they pass a little bit less, but he also leads the NFL in snap share. He basically plays every single snap. He gets all of the targets. He gets all of the air yards. He gets end zone targets, and he's good at football. And he's playing in Coors Field, and he's not like mega chalk. So like, I just don't know how to get away from Garrett Wilson. There is Chris Olave here. That target share that we were talking about. You want to play a Saint against this Giants defense that, I'm definitely not running away from the Giants defense at home in the Dome in New Orleans. The box score results have not been there for Chris Olave, but 13, 10, 14, and then 6 targets last week. He did score a touchdown. He also threw an interception. He should have had 11 DraftKings points, but he threw an intercept. I've never seen an interception on the Philly special, by the way. The Saints ran Philly special at the goal line, and Olave was the one throwing the pass, and it got picked. It was a good play by the defense, but I don't think I've ever seen the Philly special get picked off. But like Chris Olave, not mega chalk, right? The leaders in target share in the entire NFL in good matchups are not super duper chalky. I'm not so in. I want to touch on a couple of tournament plays. If you really want to have some fun, you want to talk about leverage off of Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane chalk. I mean, it would be Malik Washington, right? 3,900 on DraftKings, definitely a much better DraftKings play. I think without Tyreek Hill, they're going to build a little bit more of the offense around Malik Washington. He's kind of their yak, catch a 4-yard pass, and he led all of college football. He was a rookie last year, so 2 years ago at Virginia, he led all of college football in yak. He also had like a 40% target share at Virginia. Yeah, it is. Hey, look, I have a beautiful 5-5-5 team on DraftKings in the bet from best ball season that I would love for it to be Darren Waller. I just don't think it's Darren Waller. He had 2 targets. He did catch 2 touchdowns, but 2 targets for Darren Waller. I think Malik Washington makes for an appealing tournament option. I think, dude, like we're talking about all these great spots and all that. Like when we went through the quarterback section, we went through the Jonathan Taylor section, we talked about the Raiders being a pass funnel defense, meaning the run defense is really strong, but the pass defense is really bad, so teams take to the air more against them. And yet, Michael Pittman, who has been really good, like Michael Pittman has legitimately been good this year from a fantasy sense, from a real life sense, everything. 15 fantasy points last week on 10 targets, 19 against Tennessee, predictably struggled with Denver. Patrick Surtain, Michael Pittman is good. He ain't better than the best corner in the NFL. And 20 fantasy points against the Dolphins. At 5,100 and just 12%, right? Why is Jalen Waddle 2.5 times better play than Michael Pittman? There's just a lot of really good plays that I can still play my Fields, Garrett Wilson, right? Cowboys, Jets stuff. And there's a bunch of these plays that are awesome plays around them. Another one in that game, the Jets, again, reminder, the Jets defense is not good. The Jets have the 3rd worst overall defense, but it's because their pass defense is atrocious. They have the 3rd worst passing defense, but their run defense is actually pretty solid. Quinnen Williams and co do a good job slowing down the run, relatively speaking, right? And the pass defense is just getting absolutely shredded. As the Cowboys can keep George Pickens away from Sauce, he's not going to be away from Sauce the whole game, but if they can keep George Pickens away from Sauce, I mean, have we watched George Pickens so far this year? And there's no CeeDee Lamb. Now, the Packers just like left him multiple times in that game. The 36 fantasy points was a little bit fluky, but he's the focal point of arguably the best passing offense in the NFL with Dak and the Dallas Cowboys. And he's 6,600 and nobody wants to play him either. It's like, even if these projected ownerships as we stand right now on Thursday come in higher, which I do think several of these do, they're not going to be, it's not going to be so owned that I care. It's like, just give me the Coors Field guys, right? Give me these options at receiver and, the running back stuff. Why am I leaning into what I'm leaning into? It's because of all this different stuff. I think you can play Marv, I will say. I think I don't want to play Kyler, but I do want to play Trey McBride, and I think you can play Marvin Harrison. I think my take, again, shout out to Rick from the Spec Week Discord, mentioned that like it would make sense for the Cardinals to up the passing volume without Connor and without Benson, and not even in a game where they should win, but at home you still have to get. How did you score to get the lead, right? It's probably going to be through the passing game. And if it's through the passing game, they only really have two guys to throw the ball to, Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. And so, again, Marv, I know he's not playing awesome. I know we all have our concerns. I have a lot of concerns about the Arizona Cardinals, but I think $5,400 Marvin Harrison is just a straight up good DFS play this week. Every single week, there are no exceptions to this. Until Jackson Smith and Jigba is priced near the top of DraftKings wide receivers. And I mean, he is technically near the top, but higher than this at 7,100. Until JSN is priced, like, again, the most target dominant wide receiver in all of football. He's right up there. He's in that group. Basically, this, now Chris Olave plays for the Saints, so there needs to be, right? And technically Garrett Wilson, with the Jets, there's a small caveat here. And I'm not saying JSN should be priced like Puka. He absolutely should. He should not be priced like Puka. But what wide receivers should we be thinking about as better than JSN? Is Nico really better? Right? Obviously Tyreek is gone. Amon-Ra, okay. Abuka, give me JSN, right? Nico, Pickens, right? Debo, like I think Jackson Smith and Jigba with this level of target share is just someone at, what do we have? 10%, 11% ownership against a Bucs defense. That is a historic pass funnel, right? I think they're just like a fairly decent defense this year. Notably 0 passing yards in the second half last week from Jalen Hurts. I thought they looked good in the first half. And I guess they went in and had their orange slices at halftime. I guess it was lunch. They went in at halftime, had their orange slices, and got full tum-tums. And they came out and like forgot how to play football. Like, what did they do at halftime in the Eagles locker room? 0 passing yards. It was an absolute travesty. Almost lost the game because they went into a shell in the second half. But anyway, I do think the Bucs pass defense can be exploited, and I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is one that can absolutely exploit any passing defense, but especially one that's vulnerable on the back end and shuts down the run. But we also got to talk about, look, Amon-Ra is underowned at 16%, but Amon-Ra is completely smashing with a lot of touchdowns. He has 6 touchdowns so far this season. Amon-Ra does. I think he's a good play. I think you can play golf doubles. I think you can just play Lions one-offs. You can play like any combination of 2 or 3 Lions in your lineup because they're just going to score so many points. But if there was ever a let's get this guy going spot, it is Jameson Williams this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's now, like, think about Jameson Williams going in the 4th round of fantasy drafts all summer, right? I was, maybe you weren't, but people were taking, and no one had a problem with the price, with Jameson Williams in the 4th round. The Lions are telling us every time that they step in front of a microphone about how JSN is going to break out. He's going to get more usage. They're going to manufacture more touches. They're so excited for JMO. Now, it hasn't happened so far. What better time than against the Cincinnati Bengals to be like, let's get JMO going here. Let's draw up some stuff to get J-Mo cooking. Let's get him in the end zone. I know he had the one touchdown against the Bears. But $4,900 Jameson Williams, who's going in the 4th round of drafts over the summer, is playing the worst defense in the NFL and is 5% owned. Then who knows if that even holds? Nobody wants to play J-Mo. He doesn't project that well. Like, I'm playing Jameson Williams. He could catch 2 passes and be right. He did that against the Bears. He caught 2 passes and he paid off. You were good. I'm in on J-Mo. I do like the Chargers, guys. I mentioned we talked about some of their ownership. Aren't you worried about Washington? Yeah, I will say Debo might turn into a pretty good play as well. Debo did get to 20 last week. Terry McLaurin is in the projections again, but the latest report was Terry might need a week or 2 with his injury. So that remains to be seen. Don't know. There's nothing I can. If Terry plays, then whatever. I'm never playing Terry McLaurin in this spot. Anyway, that could be foolish. He obviously has upside, but I think the Chargers defense is still a good defense, and I don't want to play an injured Terry McLaurin against them. Though Jaden Daniels is back, I get all that, right? The game is pretty fun. I'm excited to watch Washington and the Chargers. I just don't know how much Washington I'm going to be playing from a DFS perspective, right? Committee backfield, and it's a little mushy at wide receiver, but we'll see, right? Keep an eye out for the Terry McLaurin injury updates over the course of the next day. Let's do some tight ends. See, we move a little bit quicker on the wide receivers because I know what I love, and I love me some wide receivers. J-Mo Henny says he's the most best ball pick ever. Tough in redraft. I agree, and I have him in redraft in a couple spots. But I am excited for him this week in redraft. But in most games, you're just like you don't really know what you're going to get from Jameson Williams. Like J-Mo versus Cortland Sutton or whatever, like are just really, you're just going to get your Cortland Sutton games, but you're never going to get that's probably not a fair comp because Sutton does have some big-ish games, but you get the point, right? The difference between the two. Looked at some of my second quarters drafted last week. So many are dead out of the gate. I'm with you, Dominique. Neighbors, Lamar, Tyreek, Jennings, Ricky Purdy. Yeah, I'm with you. I got a bunch. I had like 40% Braylon. So we talked about this last night as well. The Jets basically were the foundation of my second quarter draft strategy. That's what I did. I had Brees in the first round and Garrett Wilson in the first round and Justin Fields in the second round, rankings wise in that. And which obviously I also had Braylon really highly ranked in that. So I have a whole bunch of Braylon, and that was a quick coffin. But yeah, the Niner stuff, Lamar, it's a mess, man. It's an absolute mess in the second quarter. That's the craziest tournament I can remember in really like any format of all this stuff. But all right, tight end a little bit quicker. If I can get Trey McBride, this is another thing. I'm comfortable playing into the Trey McBride ownership, but I'm not. I don't think that's some mandatory thing. And the same thing about Tyler Warren, right? Why Michael Pittman makes a lot of sense is that people are going to play Jonathan Taylor and they're going to play Tyler Warren. You have Michael Pittman at wide receiver. There's your leverage, right? If Tyler Warren doesn't get the touchdown and Jonathan Taylor doesn't get the touchdown and Michael Pittman gets the touchdown, I move past those other guys. But I do think Warren and McBride are deserving. Chalk, I think Jake Ferguson is deserving to be popular. I would love to sit here and tell you, like, play Brock Bowers. I think it's a good spot. I think $5,500 is a terrible price for Brock Bowers. Michael Mayer is not all the way back yet. We'll see what his status is, right? But like, is Brock Bowers okay? I don't know. Right, and that's the question anyone will ask when you talk about Brock Bowers is, what about his knee? Aren't you worried? Yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. I'm worried. Is his ownership low enough for me to set that worry aside? I don't know. I'm not sure. Right. I don't have a great answer for that. I wish I had a better answer for that. I'm legitimately worried about Brock Bowers' like current health and role, and Chip Kelly and Geno Smith, right? It's not even just his knee. It's like this offense doesn't look good. Geno's playing terrible. I'm not so sure we should be trusting Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll, and there's not a lot of talent around him to help them move the ball down the field, right? Obviously, Genty is awesome. Jacoby Myers is fine, but like Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton and Jack Besh and these guys are not anything special. So I'm worried about Brock Bowers. He's not a priority for me. I would rather play Trey McBride or Tyler Warren. I think I have the same upside with those guys as I do with Brock Bowers. I'm not at all no on Darren Waller. Absolutely not. He caught 2 passes and scored 2 touchdowns. He had 27 yards. The dude had 27 yards. Tyreek got hurt in that game, and they did not feature Darren Waller or anything like that. Like, I get it. It's fun. I'm kind of rooting for the guy, honestly. I think he's made some mistakes that he probably regrets in his life, and I can appreciate somebody, trying to turn their life around and such, which he's done kind of multiple times. I respect his journey, but just no, I'm not doing it. And I will be back here same day, same time next week, waving the white flag if Darren Waller buries me in DFS. And I mean bears. I don't mean this 2-catch 27-yard shit. I mean, like, you had to have him in DFS. I will wave the white flag. Juwan Johnson hasn't practiced yet this week. I'm a little bit worried about him also because Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill are working their way back. I doubt they're back this week, but just keep an eye. Juwan Johnson's role obviously has been elite. Now, it wasn't so good against Buffalo, but I think that was a little bit of a Buffalo thing. But just keep an eye out for Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill because Juwan's role has been crazy, right? Playing every snap, running every route. That's part of why he's earned so many targets as he's out there on every play and they throw the ball 45 times a week. If that's not the case anymore, then Juwan really loses a lot of appeal. I think you can play Oronde Gadsden. I think you can play Mason Taylor. Right? Like, what if we're talking about this Coors Field stuff? Mason Taylor finally seemed like he was a functional part of the offense. 7 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards. It's a good game for Mason Taylor. He's a rookie. He's 2,800 and projecting for 4% ownership against the Cowboys. That seems like a pretty good play to me. I like Gadsden fine. He continues to earn like a little bit more of a role. Got to check on Will Dissly. Yes, 100%. Great game for my 555 team. Dude, I will say, and sorry for the DFS people that don't care about, so the story behind this is, obviously I draft best ball teams all summer. That's what we do all summer here on Spike Week. We talk some DFS and all that kind of stuff in season. I drafted a DraftKings $555 best ball team on a stream. And I was trying to figure out, right, you're in like the 17th round or something like that. I'm trying to figure out who to draft on this team. And you're talking to the chat and whoops, your clock ran out and I forgot to move Darren Waller. Or I forgot to add somebody to the queue. So I auto drafted Darren Waller on a team. And I drafted about 1,300 best ball teams this summer. And I had a stone cold goose egg, an absolute goose egg of Darren Waller. My only Darren Waller exposure from the entire summer was in one auto drafted 555 team that was on stream. And so I got a bunch of great shout out to all the people, man. The good people make up for the bad people and stuff in the world, of course, but in the fantasy world, a bunch of the messages and tags and all that different kind of stuff about Waller are so funny. Seriously, one of the funniest moments that I've had watching Darren Waller catch touchdowns and people being like, "You're gonna win," I just felt like I'm rich, man. I can't believe I'm going to win $1 million with a team I drafted on stream because I fucked up and accidentally drafted Darren Waller. I see you, Mike. We'll get to it in just a second. But Sean likes Ertz. I like Ertz. I can't believe I'm saying that as well. But I think amongst that Washington stuff, right, it hasn't gone so well, right? So these 2 games, Marcus Mariota played 6 points. In the 2 games that Jaden Daniels played, 18 points against Green Bay, and let's call it 12 against the Giants. It's not like incredible, and I'm not like jazzed up to play Zach Ertz, but I think he's like a kind of good play in this game. It could be a little sneaky shootout. He can be a volume hog. And I think Jaden Daniels is a big deal for Zach Ertz for sure. That mostly does it, I think, at tight end. Oh, here's another one. Look, I know it hasn't been good for Sam Laporta. Neither is that mustache in this picture. That's not good either. But like, he's still Sam Laporta. He's really, really good at football, and he's on the Detroit Lions, and he's 1% owned at tight end. It's like, why can't he score 2 touchdowns? What if the Bengals push back in this game? It's crazy. Theo Johnson got a little bit more work for the Giants, but nothing super duper crazy. Goddard missed practice, I believe. So I guess keep an eye out for Jatavian Sanders. I should the Carolina Panthers version of Darren Waller, except he had 8 targets. 5 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown for Tommy Tremble. It's not like exciting, but he is 2,900. And he had 8 targets last week without Jatavian Sanders. So just make sure we're monitoring Jatavian Sanders' status in that one. Let's talk a little bit of defense. But I see your question, Mike. We'll do that first. While you're on the topic of best ball, what are your thoughts on Shipley right now? I don't have a lot of good thoughts on Shipley right now. I've been worrying about it too much. I think as he comes back and gets back to full health, I think he's going to grow back into that role that he had, right? He was the change of pace and passing down back before he got hurt in week 1. That was a small sample, but I think it shows you what they think about him. I think it's what the role that they expect for him. I don't think that AJ Dillon is long for any, I know he got a couple touches in that game on Sunday. I mean, Will Shipley's just not going to provide us anything. Unfortunately, it was possible that he provided us something with what we saw in the first half of the week 1 game. And he almost provided us the touchdown on the first drive of the Eagles season. I don't think we're going to see that, at least not for quite a while. He's ultimately just a Saquon gets hurt bet, but nothing about my thoughts around what happens if Saquon goes down have changed at all. He was never going to get every single touch in that backfield, but he's just inherently super duper valuable. He's explosive. He catches passes. That's the kind of guy we want as a contingent value bet on the Eagles. I would like for their O-line to play better, but I don't have a lot of, what was his role be if Saquon goes down? I would call him the lead of the backfield. Passing downs, right, and getting the most touches in the backfield. But he's not going to take absolutely everything. It's kind of like Trey Benson. So when James Conner went down, Trey Benson was the lead back on the Arizona Cardinals. But DeMercado's going to play. I think Michael Carter got a carry in last game. That's how I feel about Shipley will lead the backfield. And he'll catch some passes, and he's definitely going to lead the backfield from a touch perspective. But AJ Dillon or Tank Bigsby or whoever, they'll mix in, as maybe both will mix in as well. But the bet was just being the lead on the Eagles made it completely worth it. Right now, the problem is not so much what's his role. If something happens to Saquon, for me, it's that the Eagles are not that appealing. Saquon's not even scoring very, very, very many points, so it's hard to envision Will Shipley or AJ Dillon or Tank Bigsby or whatever doing it. A man can dream, and I think the Eagles will be better down the road. But that's definitely the greatest concern right now. All right, let's talk defenses, and then we can get on out of here. Folks can go start building their teams for the weekend. I will just say, shout out to Jordan that was in the chat earlier. I mentioned I do a show every Sunday morning on RotoGrinders with he and Neil Orfield. I'm sure you guys know, if you're in the best ball streets, you guys know Neil Flannelverse, the oldest best ball drafter to stream 150 BBMs. But we have a group message that I've had a couple of good weeks calling some defenses. So do not listen to whatever I'm about to say from a defense perspective this week, because there's no way. I played the Vikings 2 weeks ago and flag planted the Vikings 2 weeks ago and the Patriots last week. And those all went obviously super duper well. And this week, there's just no chance. Whoever I talk about this week is going to give up a billion points. One thing that from like a macro level perspective that I think that the field is getting wrong, that's like truly exploitable at the defense position, is this the too much punting bad defenses. Too much punting bad defenses. The Browns have been a little bit one that makes a little bit more sense because they're an elite defense. And so people have been punting like the Browns, even though they're playing good offenses. And like I can sort of get that. But what I think is going on in the NFL right now is there's just some really, really bad offenses, some really, really bad offensive line, some really, really bad quarterback play. And we want to take advantage of that, right? Whether it's Joe Burrow's out, JJ McCarthy's out, and not that you care about JJ McCarthy, but like, Bryce Young is really bad and the Panthers have no talent and a bad offensive line and an injured offensive line. Right. Like the Saints project for points because they're 2,200 and they're playing Jackson Dart and the Giants. And like, I get it, but like the Saints are bad. The Giants are going to be really run heavy. Like, sure. Can you get a fumble or something like that against a Jackson Dart? Sure. I just don't want to be playing into these defenses when I can play into, I'm going to sort by the opposite side of the salary. I don't particularly like the Cardinals because the Cardinals defense isn't great, but I think you can play defenses against, right? If you played the Texans last week, granted they were popular, but if you played the Texans last week, you felt pretty good shutting out the Tennessee Titans. And dude, we just talked about the Detroit Lions. If you were not here, where's my, here we go. If you were not here when we were discussing earlier some of the concerns about Jake Browning, right? Is this a bounce back spot for Jake Browning? Well, if we go look at sack percentage, right, by defenses, right? I got this. This is Sumer Sports. It's a great resource for anybody. If you go look at the defense and look, you can look at some of the metrics of these defenses. Who has the highest sack rate in the entire NFL? So Jake Browning is getting destroyed behind a bad offensive line, the bad offensive line that got Joe Burrow injured, and now faces the team with the highest sack rate in the entire NFL. And they've played the Packers and the Ravens in 2 of their games. You can sign me up for the Detroit Lions pass rush. I know they have some injuries in the secondary, and it's Jamar Chase. I get all of that. But like Jake Browning will turn the football over. Jake Browning will take sacks. The Detroit Lions, at what do we got here? Currently projecting at 4% ownership, like 12th highest owned defense, something like that. The Lions just like definitely jump out to me. I think the Ravens defense does absolutely suck, but if you want to bet that we talked about how it's possibly some of the schedule making their defense look worse than it is. I think that you can play the Ravens, but yes, copy paste laid it's a funny name. I do very much like the New York Football Giants. Now they're not awesome. They're not awesome on defense. The secondary is not great, but the New Orleans Saints, while really plucky, right? I'm going to continue to call it. That's the phrase for the 2025 New Orleans Saints. They're plucky. They're bad, but right, they hang around with the Buffalo Bills. They've had a chance to win 3 of their 4 games. Now they went to Seattle and got the absolute bricks beat off them. But in 3 of their 4 games, 2 of the 4, they were, I believe, even in this Bills game, right? They had a drive that they could have gone and won the game, or at least tied it right at the end. I forget. It was close enough, is all I'm saying, with the Buffalo Bills, one of the best teams in the NFL. The Saints are plucky. They're not a completely useless offense. Like, this is not the Panthers, right? Or the Titans. They're not completely useless. However, they play really fast. They throw the ball a lot. The offensive line isn't great. And Spencer Rattler has been plucky himself, but is prone to some mistakes, right? He runs around a lot. He will throw into coverage and all that kind of stuff. And the Giants, for all of their flaws, including on the defensive side, the pass rush is awesome. They have a bunch of pass rush talent. Now it hasn't been quite as good as from a results perspective in terms of sacks. I think they've been on the lower end. Where are we at? New York Football Giants. Yeah. So just 6% or so, 5.6% sack rate. But I think I would expect that to tick up with with Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and all of their pass rushers. I would expect that ticks up for the Giants, and this is a pretty good spot to do so. How do you feel about pairing Jets D with Brees? I think like there's crazier things that you could do with like we talked about the leverage stuff earlier. Like if they strip sack fumble Dak once and the Jets really run the clock down, right, with Brees, which is your part here. I just find it. Yeah, Burns has been good. The rest of the Giants pass rush has not been getting home yet. I find it difficult to see the defense against the Jets have been objectively bad, and specifically the pass rush is non-existent and the pass defense is really bad. I find it really difficult for them to. The Cowboys offensive line has been good. Dak has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. There's just so many other spots that I think I want to attack. I think I would still just play Brees, though I get the whole like leverage angle, right? If there's a pick six by the Jets and Brees is just grinding out the clock, then the Cowboys are not. But the Cowboys are also not like mega chalk either. So I'm not too worried, right, about like leveraging off of that game script. The Giants are going to run the ball. Warehouse. The Saints play the Saints play at the fastest pace in the league, and they will throw. So the Giants, Dart and Scatterby are going to run. Absolutely. But if they can get out to a lead against the Saints, they don't have to get out to a lead. Kellen Moore is going to pass, and Kellen Moore is going to play fast. It's like the two fundamentals of how Kellen Moore coaches football for sure that I'm not worried about in that game. This ain't your Dennis Allen Saints. So like what we've thought about the Saints for a few years, just wipe it from your memory. This is the Kellen Moore Saints, and they play the most modern version of football that you possibly can. So a shout out to Kellen Moore. Like I said, he's made them plucky. They are definitely plucky. I think you can play Seattle's defense every week. I don't really like targeting Baker too much, but so now we're going to be missing Mike Evans, missing Bucky Irving. Chris Godwin's still only in his second game back. I know Tristan Wirfs is back, but Seattle is a really good defense, like a straight up really good defense. I think you can play them. You want to talk about a leverage defense? The Washington Commanders pass rush is not bad. Now their pass defense is bad, like very, right? We've talked about that as well, but their pass rush is not terrible. It's not terrible. So I don't know what their stack rate is. Yeah, just above average, right? From a stack rate perspective, I don't have pressure in front of me, but hold on, I got to sneeze. Oh man, allergies getting me. I'm allergic to talking about defenses. This is why we play best ball. But do you want to talk about leverage, right? The Chargers, specifically passing game, but even Amari and Hampton, the Chargers are real popular. But they lost. The Giants got a lot of pressure last week because of the Chargers offensive line, right? Without Alt, without Rashawn Slater, the Chargers offensive line goes from a strength to a weakness, and especially at left and right tackle, which is a real problem from a pass rush perspective. If the Commanders have a pretty good pass rush, they have a terrible secondary. They have a pretty good pass rush. If they can get home and cause life to be miserable for Justin Herbert with their pressure, and we already know that they've stopped the run, right? So they're stopping the run and they're able to pressure against a bad offensive line. I think Washington is interesting for tournaments. It's not my favorite because I don't love playing, really no matter what's going on with Justin Herbert. He threw a lot of interceptions, I guess, in their playoff game against the Texans, but he generally doesn't make a ton of mistakes like that. But I think it's appealing for sure. I think that is about it. I don't want to play the Miami and Carolina stuff, even though I think both of those offenses are pretty good targets. Totally burying the lead. The very last one that I wanted to make sure to mention was Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are one of the very best defenses in the entire NFL. I don't know what their EPA is actually. It's just only been okay if I recall, but like you saw last week, man, they were awesome. Oh yeah, no, I got it sorted by the worst defenses. Yeah, so from an EPA per play perspective, the Texans have been the best defense in the NFL. The Texans, the Vikings, the Seahawks, the Jags, hilariously, the Lions, the Rams, the Broncos, the Chargers. Right there's your best defense. They've been the best. They've had they should be better than 1-3 against this schedule, but they've had a pretty cushy schedule, generally speaking, so far. And despite being the best defense in the NFL, despite having what's their sack rate? Top 10 sack rate in the NFL. They're $2,400. They're $2,400. They're going to be popular. Derrick Henry could make this look very, very foolish, but this is Cooper Rush. Right? This is the best defense in the NFL against Cooper Rush. It's hard. That's your cash game play, right? That's your cash game play, the Houston Texans. And if you're funky enough in tournaments, I think that is a perfectly fine tournament play as well. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on the defenses. That's going to wrap it up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you could hit the thumbs up while you're sitting here, if you have enjoyed it. I particularly enjoy walking through the DFS slate like this. Starting next week, Jordan, if you're still listening, I convinced my good friend Jordan Vanek to come and join me to talk some DFS every single week. So we're going to start that off next week. You guys won't have to listen to only me blabber for 2 hours in your ears. Every Baltimore stacks super low owned. Yes, they are. You won't have to listen to just me. We'll bring on another total ball knower in Jordan next week. I'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll be doing some drafts, and we got an NBA strategy video coming out for my NBA fans. You can check that out here on the channel as well. Hit the subscribe button, all the typical caveats and stuff, and be on the lookout later today for the Week 5 Survivor video for myself and Rob. That's gonna do it. I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Go Rams tonight. RIP to the 49ers. Have a good one, guys. Cheers. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.